So it's always the hair that tells the true story about the true ethnicity of our ancient people. But not only the hair tells the story, there's actually another huge piece here. You notice how the nose is missing on this statue? Seemingly chiseled out. Now what's interesting about this is a very common theme amongst many ancient statues and sculptures found around the world. Even on the Sphinx of Egypt, again, on all these ancient statues, the nose has seemingly been chiseled out. It's because the nose tells the real story, guys. It tells the real story.
Patriots, this just in, there has been an awakening. Why are all the noses missing? Why are the noses missing from all of the Egyptian statues, or a lot of them? The truth is because Black Americans come from kings and queens and royalty.
Whatever the Egyptians were doing, I think they were the most advanced civilization that ever existed. I don't think we can do what they did. The precision in which they built it, I really don't think we can do that. Just the symmetry of the faces of the statues is unparalleled, and they're immense.
You know, I may have said a lot of things up here like, oh, I think we're these people or this, that, and the third, because we don't know our history. But when it comes to those Egyptians, I literally would throw in all of my money in a bet to say African Americans descended from the Egyptians. Because one, they needed us to build. And who are the only people everybody was fascinated with how they built? The Egyptians. Now, even if I'm not right, something happened to us. We lost a battle and somebody wiped the memory, or they took our identifier. Somebody did something to where we can't self-identify ourselves anymore.
If you read what the Greeks said, not what we think, but if you read what the Greeks said, they said they got everything from Egypt. They got all their knowledge from Egypt.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching me from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter. This is Juneteenth Stories. There's something that I usually say, and brothers and sisters, I really don't know how much I might say this, but I'm usually saying that there was nothing like white supremacy. Most of the time, the word white supremacy, I replace it with white insecurity. Because for the longest time, throughout the what we call the white history, I heard that they are trying to have their own history. Good luck with that. Usually what we call the white history and what white people did for themselves, I know they have their history, and I respect that, right? But I'm talking about them in this sense because they interfered with the black history. Through this, they showed how they fear black people. Now that comes white insecurity and not white supremacy. Because white supremacy, if only if they tried to show people that they are great. But there is no point they showed people that they are great. They lied about their greatness. They sabotaged black history. They tried to take away evidences. Why are African evidences in European museums? Because they don't want black people to access this truth. And this tells you why they have always been trying to hide the truth from black people. And I think it's important that you understand that black Americans, we are dealing with people who are so much insecure about themselves because they know something great about black people, but they don't want you to access the information. You know, there's no thing which is so powerful as knowing your true origin, as knowing who you are. Yes, black Americans comes from kings and queens, royalties. Since they feared that, and because of their cognitive dissonance, they saw to it like we have the power to write the story. And that's where they came with revisionist history. And they started telling black people about their history. Because they lied. They sabotaged the truth. And now they presented what it's their truth. And now all of this, all we've been learning in our curriculum, it has been their truth. But I'm calling upon all black people to start educating your kids, start educating your younger brothers and sisters about the true black history. Because all these things people need to know, and it's true. People need to know the truth because it is only the truth that shall set people free. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to let you watch this video. And if you're watching it for the first time, I'm definitely asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to what I can offer you. But until then, let's dive into it. I'll be back.
And they were brought here through slavery, had their names and history stolen from them. And people are literally like crying online hearing this. And this is kind of something I've kind of known, for a little bit, but it's interesting how when something hits you, it almost reminds me of Juneteenth, how people were free from slavery, but they didn't know. And it was like, once they got the word, was Juneteenth. And it almost feels like this is a liberation for Black Americans to realize that some people are saying the American dream they've been sold is BS. That your lineage, your roots are greatness of kings and queens and royalty, and Lord knows in Egypt, the technology that we have no idea about. That's Black culture. That's Black American culture. That's African culture. A lot of people are saying, I had no clue. They thought Africa was just poor and, kids sitting around with flies on their, belly and stuff. No, it's beautiful. It's prosperous. It's like Wakanda. But they've just been hiding it from you. So I think there's a beautiful day of awakening. Hey, it's like Juneteenth all over.
So it's always the hair that tells the true story about the true ethnicity of our ancient people. But not only the hair tells the story, there's actually another huge piece here. You notice how the nose is missing on this statue? Seemingly chiseled out. Now what's interesting about this is a very common theme amongst many ancient statues and sculptures found around the world. Even on the Sphinx of Egypt, again, on all these ancient statues, the nose has seemingly been chiseled out. It's because the nose tells the real story, guys. It tells the real story. And when we see Greek statues like this, intact nose, no problem, white people, And then you got the chiseled out nose here because it's telling the real story of our true ancestors. You think that it's just a coincidence that all of these ancient statues have the nose chiseled out? Well, let me tell you, it's most definitely not a coincidence, and it's just another way to cover up the real origins of humanity and our true history. Peace and love.
Back in ancient Egypt, the noses of statues were broken off on purpose, not by accident, not by time, but to erase the identity, power, and blackness of the people those statues represented. See, they knew that those were Black faces. Those were African rulers, Black kings, Black queens, Black gods, Black rulers. And they didn't want future generations to look up and see that kind of power. Because you can't erase a people if you keep their image alive. In Egypt belief, the nose was the breath of life. The statue itself was seen as a living presence. So when you destroy the nose, you're cutting off the spirit. You're destroying the legacy. They broke the nose off the Great Sphinx, the oldest, most iconic structure in the world. And it was destroyed in the 1300s by a man who felt like people were worshiping it. But why did he break off the nose? Because he can see that those people were worshiping a statue that looked like a Black man. They also did the same thing with Queen Hatshepsut, one of the most powerful female pharaohs. Her statues were smashed and her images were erased, all because she was a powerful Black woman. The person that took her position, Thutmose III, he ordered for her legacy to be destroyed. They erased the nose, erase the face so they could erase the truth. Basically, the reason for breaking the noses and those features off those statues was about suppressing identity, removing evidence of power. During colonial times, European looters and colonizers, they entered Egypt and other African nations. They intentionally broke the noses off those statues because the features were too Black to fit their whitewash stories. They couldn't handle a Black man being the face of the world's greatest civilization.
These are monstrously huge, perfectly symmetrical faces.
Right.
Their temples are insanely intricate.
They were incredibly advanced.
Incredibly advanced.
With math, with science, with technology.
Certainly with geometry. 20-ton gigantic stone blocks that were taken from a mountain 500 miles away. And no one has any idea how the fuck they got them.
Nobody has any clue.
No guesses.
Right.
There's some guesses about, oh, maybe the river system was different back then. Whatever. How are you getting that 50-ton chunk of granite out of a fucking mountain and moving it down, even with modern equipment? How are you getting it over the mountain?
There is a hidden history in Egypt that we were not allowed to know, and it all has to do with the brain. All of their imagery was symbolic, and they were trying to explain how to use your brain and develop consciousness so that their society thrived. Now, for example, this is the brainstem, and it represented the god Osiris. And if you look very closely, these similarities are way too accurate to dismiss. And this is all throughout the country, and these things are written in stone. It's very hard to change what's written in stone. And now that we have advanced anatomy images and the ability to create these impressive graphics, which is from Magical Egypt, if you haven't checked it out, you should definitely go look at it. But their goal was to create a prosperous society, and they knew that if they taught people how to use their brains correctly and develop as conscious people, then their society would thrive. So, their way of educating was through images. For example, this snake represents the unity of the two hemispheres of the brain and the emergence of a conscious being. That's why the kings and queens had it.
They have lied to us about ancient Egyptian history and religion, and I'm about to tell you now. So as you can see, they say ancient Egypt was 5,000 years ago. Why does this matter? So the reason why they tell us that ancient Egypt was 5,000 years ago is so that it can align with the Bible. A lot of the stories in the Bible are actually not true about ancient Egyptians. Ancient Egypt was actually over 65,000 years ago. But they would never want us to know the true power of the spirituality that lies within ancient Egyptian history. This is El Hakim, and basically he is indigenous to the actual ancient Egyptian area. He actually lives in those areas near the Sphinx, and he's been studying the ancient Egyptian history for as long as it's been. The tribe that he's a part of is actually also native to the land, and still are. His traditions, which are native to ancient Egyptian land, have taught him that ancient Egyptian is actually 65,000 years.
You know, I may have said a lot of things up here like, oh, I think we're these people or this, that, and the third, because we don't know our history. But when it comes to those Egyptians, I literally would throw in all of my money in a bet to say African Americans descended from the Egyptians. Because one, they needed us to build. And who are the only people everybody was fascinated with how they built? The Egyptians. Now, even if I'm not right, something happened to us. We lost a battle and somebody wiped the memory, or they took our identify. Somebody did something to where we can't self-identify ourselves anymore. And it was a war or something. Nobody can tell me otherwise. Now, there's a lot of reasons why I say what I say, but this one right here puts it on the cake. Apophis represents everything the Egyptians feared: darkness, oblivion, and the loss of one's identity. Who are the only motherfuckers in this world right now trying to figure out who they are? And what I'm starting to realize is all this religion really was the downfall of the Egyptians. Apophis is religion. He is darkness. Apophis is not only represented a threat to the deceased, but to the gods, Egypt, and the order of the cosmos. What were we talking about in that last video when I said this was a battle over the cosmos? And what's so crazy is Ra is considered to be like the god of all gods, but the Egyptians are considered to be the creator of life, everything they have. And what do African Americans do today? Create. And what's so crazy is down the Mississippi River and the Grand Canyon, there are so many Egyptian artifacts people are finding to show that Egyptians placed their stuff here to show this was a part of their land. And what's so crazy is they have a story about every other country and continent, but when it comes to America, it's a big ass question mark, just like the people inside of it. Whatever the case is, we have had to have some type of power. And when I say power, we had to be some threat for them to take what we identify as. And what's so crazy is, it makes sense, because if everybody were to say, oh, we were the real Egyptians, then why the fuck does everybody have y'all artifacts hanging around their own homes? That's the realty. If the only reason they could do that is if that people didn't know that's their shit. You get what I'm trying to say? Now, y'all know how they said they had Upper Egypt and then they had Lower Egypt, and Seth was considered to be the king of foreign kingdoms, meaning anything outside of that was his kingdom. Now, if you look at Pangea, right, North America sits right on top in the left of Africa. I'm just saying, hey, like I said, nobody can ever tell me black people weren't here way before, but they're just trying to erase the history. Because it's so crazy. They only do it with us. Everybody only focuses on Americans for some odd reason. Even the Aboriginal Australians, they always seem to mess with them. But what's so crazy is about them, they migrated out of Africa, so they say, and they went to Eurasia. The same spot the Native Americans came from. Hey. Then went all the way down to Australia. But they're still trying to figure out how they got all the way down there. You can get there by boats, right? They said we got here by boats, so why are y'all questioning how they got from Eurasia to Australia? They could do it in a boat. Why can't they do it in a boat, but we were in a boat? That makes absolutely no sense. These people migrated into Europe, Russia, Asia, then came all the way down to Australia, but none of them stopped in North America. Right where they were right next to, none of them stopped. And quite honestly, I feel like Caribbeans are the Native Americans to here. They just shipped them out because it was too many of us. I can get very deep, but hey. And before I go, the rise of Christianity actually ended the Egyptians. Like I said before, all of this religion ended the Egyptians. And what was the main thing that was forced upon black slaves? Religion. Christianity, Muslim. If these people did not convert, they had their testicles cut off so they could not produce an offspring. Hello. Oh, magic came from Egypt as well, just so you all know. Now, I also didn't know Cain is actually the brother of Seth. But what's even more, I saw that, I don't know if Cain is Seth or what. I'm still looking that up. But what's so crazy is, right, Cain isn't even a person. It's a tribe. And this is why I've always wondered, how were they able to identify the people that they wanted to sell or identify the people who were in certain tribes? They had tattoos, which I'm starting to see why they say that is a devilish act because of where it comes from.
This is not a white Arab. This is not a white Arab civilization. This is an ancient African civilization. These are the people of Kemet. They are black people with curly hair. The Kemites were unanimously described by the Romans who saw them, the Greeks who saw them. This is a first-hand historical proof source, as black with curly hair. The European Egyptologists unanimously agreed that these were black Africans, but later changed the narrative to suit their colonial agenda. Why do you look like the way you look today? Because first the Assyrians invaded my ancestors. Then the Greeks came, then the Romans, then the Arabs, then the Turks. All the greedy people wanted to claim this ancient African culture. But till this day, you people still don't understand what the Ankh means.
So you would say that those are not the real Egyptians, right?
Earlier when we're talking about like the movies that they made back in the Western society, like the Egyptians looking blonde and fair skin, and like, come on. Egyptians were either tan skin or dark Nubians. We don't say African Americans in Egypt, by the way. We say Africans or we say Nubians. So to us, you are a Nubian.
So that's why people keep calling me Nubian Queen.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you are Nubian to us. You are Nubia. So to the Nubians, we are Egyptians because we are the new Egyptians.
The new Egyptians.
The Nubians are the native Egyptians.
The ancient,
they were the ones who built ancient Egypt.
Wow.
Who built the pyramids, who built ancient Egypt civilization, who invented Egypt, as I would say, were the Nubians.
If you read what the Greeks said, not what we think, but if you read what the Greeks said, they said they got everything from Egypt. They got all their knowledge from Egypt. Pythagoras spent 15 years in Egypt. And what did he have to do? He probably had to spend 5 years convincing them that he was worthy to get the knowledge that they had. Remember, knowledge was power. Knowledge was sacred. Knowledge was something you just didn't publish in the newspapers. Knowledge was guarded very closely because it was of tremendous value. You wouldn't give it to anybody. You would give it to somebody who was willing to shave his head and be a penitent for 5 years, and then you might start to tell him things. Okay? And the Greeks did this. Pythagoras did this. Other Greeks did this. And they said that they got all their knowledge from the Egyptians. Now, when did we come up with the idea that the Greeks created everything from scratch? Well, believe it or not, it happened in the 18th and 19th century. And it's an unfortunate fact of life that Romanticism, which has many great things about it, also has a dark side, which has to do with racism. And in the 18th and 19th century, it was decided that it was just not appropriate for all this knowledge to come from an African country. Where would that knowledge, if it survived to the time of the Roman Empire, where would it have been kept? Yes. In Alexandria, in the museum, the library at Alexandria. And what happened to the library? It was burned in a war, okay? And at that point, what happened to those books that were burned? If they were written in living languages, there was a scholar someplace who had memorized the book and could just write it down again. But if it was in a dead language, like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, end of story. Can't be reconstructed.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter HDX Stories. Let's have a chat in regards to this. White fear every day keeps on showing itself. And now they can't hide anymore because people are questioning, people are asking for receipts, and people want to know the truth. And this is that part of time, or this is just that part in time that these folks feared that it will happen. And all this we are seeing, it's coming to happen. It's coming into place. Because at the end of the day, the truth is getting out and everyone is getting to see the truth. So you understand from this point that they have always tried to hide the truth from black people. Because most definitely, there is something about black folks that they fear. There is something about black folks that they are not ready to let go. And they know that black people are great, and that's why it's so much hard for them to let go because of the truth. And right now, they are getting to be exposed. Now, black Americans are God-chosen people. They were in Egypt when Joseph had favor there. This is why Americans pushes so much negativity or things that go against God towards in their community to stay out of his favor. As long as America keeps them out of God's favor, others can benefit of their punishment. It is clear that a black man is an original man. I've been saying this for the longest time. And I think it's upon us as people of this generation, young people of this generation, to share this information. When we are still living in a society where people prefer not to consume the truth, I think it's time we learn to educate our young brothers and sisters and let them know the truth and let them know that we deserve the truth. And this is the moment of reckoning. This is the moment where the truth is getting exposed, because this is that time in history that these people feared. And we are seeing it happening in real time. We are seeing it happening. That time of history that they never thought that will come to happen. We are seeing it happening because this is the most feared part of history. And this is black history. And I'm happy that everyone is getting to see this. Things coming clearly right hand. The ancient DNA is the mitochondrial gene, is from the Eve gene that can produce any race on the face of the planet. However, other races cannot. I think I did a video in something close or related to this some other time ago. Somebody is saying that I'm Nigerian born and bred. When add my DNA ancestries, that is around 1,000 years, is showing I have Egyptian, Ethiopian, Jew, Sephardi, Jew, Mizrahi Jew, and that's so fascinating. The Steppe and the Tang dynasty, I'm blown away. How is this possible? Born to fully Nigerian parents in Nigeria. As a little girl, I used to think my profile looked like the Egyptian carvings, my modern DNA sequence linked to the Mandika tribe, Bianca and Mboti. Pijimis, no wonder my short calves. I found out my cousin through my DNA. She is in the US and her ancestors were transported to the US from the transatlantic slave trade. I'm so happy to know her. She has a very strong likeness to my mother. She is in her 70s. I'm in my 60s, and I'm so glad about this. I have studied African genealogy and thinking to offer free services to anyone who wants to know more about their roots, the basics. Big love to all. Yep. So, I really don't know, but I'm glad that black people are really getting to understand and want their part of truth instead of most of the time being told the truth about you. Now you have your own truth as a person. And that's the most important thing that a black person can have. Having your own part of the truth. That's the most important thing that a black person can have. Because as time goes by, that's the moment, or this is the moment that they learned to understand. They learned to know that indeed it's time. We cannot hide from the truth, and the truth is getting exposed to everyone. Somebody saying that this is very accurate information that every black man, woman, and child worldwide should know. Whatever we are being taught in these schools, strategically given to make us feel like we are weak people, while at the same time make us view them as strong and intelligent. Our kids must learn about the truth at home because they won't be taught the truth at school. They need to gain back that mind state we once had before slavery and colonization. This is how it goes, brothers and sisters. And this is how it should be. Right? Some would say that I figured out when I was 9-year-old kid who loved to draw and was in art. I will draw pictures of these Egyptian statues with broken off noses because I wondered why they were broken off. I remember the very first nose I drew in and right away I said to myself, this was a black person. Being a young black kid in 1972, this was a revelation. Eventually, I figured it out. They always try to erase history, but the truth always comes out. One thing I like to say about this person that I've had this comment, you are gifted. That's one thing you need to know. And that was a revelation that God was trying to give you and trying to tell you that these people hid the truth from you. And you need to know the truth. Somebody saying that this is why black people's excellence is from memory. Memory lost during the 40 years of being lost. The Bible was changed, lost in wilderness. And why and where and when did these memories take place? We blacksmith, carpenters, building toilets outside, wash tubs for bathing, and so many other pieces of the puzzles. I bet there are many underground places that have been discovered all over the USA and other countries. In the 60s, air culture wasn't allowed at work. Why were libraries burned down? Same thing done at black towns in USA and around the world. Why are whites afraid to learn from others except to steal creations from them, claiming to be the one that created it to benefit only them? A perfect question. And a good question to ask. And a critical question to ask, especially at this moment, right? Some of us don't know our history. A lot of us do. I know our history. Everyone I know our history. So it is true that we understand and we know history But I think it's important for people to teach other people who don't know this history. Because having this part of history and letting it be for yourself, trust me, it's not serving any good. It only serves good if your neighbors know the history, your kids, your brothers, anybody knows your history. And I think that's the most important part in all of this learning. We learn so that we can also educate other people. We don't learn so that we stay with this information. We learn so that we can also help other people that want this information. That's how I find it important. So brothers and sisters, share this information. Share this information. Play it for your kids. Let them know the truth. Because everyone deserves the truth. Every black person deserves the truth. Because that's the most important thing that you can have right now, where information is being hid from people, is being hid from the massive. That's the most important thing that you can have, especially in this time, right? So, please let me know what you think about this. I'm your host and pray Center Age Stories, but until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. So.